Shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. Yahweh be in the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world calls God. Yahweh Shai be in the name of his beloved Son, who the world didn't really calls Jesus. It's the brother Yair Adad of WFI Indiana Camp, coming at y'all with a quick cold cut through the spirit. Quick cold cut, simply going into how to be in favor with man as well, and most importantly, how to be in favor with the Most High God. Now, when I say how to be in favor with man, I'm not speaking from a place of trying to be a people pleaser or a man pleaser and this and that and so on and so forth. This is mainly if you're disliked or if people dislike you or if your name come up and it's a bad taste in people's mouth. You know, if that's the case, but you're doing what's right, then so be it. Right? That's between them and the Lord. That they gotta deal with that between them and the Lord. You see what I'm saying? But if you're disliked and it's because it's something that you're doing wrong or things that you're doing wrong, then hey, we got to align ourselves back with the precepts and the scriptures. You understand? That's what it comes down to. So you can be in favor, you understand, with, you know, your people ultimately. Right? You're only walking around and you an a-hole to everybody. You just an a-hole all the time. You see what I'm saying? You just an a-hole. You doing this, you doing that, you speak bad about people, and it ain't even in a form of correction. You just doing it just to do it, or you backbiting, or you not paying somebody lends you something and you not paying them back, or you taking, you know, a year and you got the money but you don't, like these different things. You understand? You don't want to align yourself with those things. You want to align yourself with the scriptures as close as possible, as best as you can. You understand? And in turn, also doing the same when it comes to being in favor with the Most High God. Ultimately, it all comes back to what? The commandments and wisdom, right? And we're going to get that and show that today, right? So, like I said, just being in favor with man, and most importantly, being in favor with the Most High God, because that is important, all right? So let's go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 3. Right, this is the book of Proverbs chapter 3, and I'm gonna start at verse 3. Right, it says, "Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them upon thy neck, write them upon the table of thine heart." Right, so it says, "Let not mercy and truth forsake thee." What is the truth? Right, the truth is the commandments. Right, so well, it tells you that also in verse 1. Right, I'm gonna read verse 1. It says, "My son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments." You understand? So it's letting you know, look, don't let these commandments, don't let the law, you know, leak out from you. Don't let, and when I say leak out, I mean like seeping out, like a hole in the tire. It's just air just seeping out slowly. Right? That's why when you read the book of Sirach, chapter 19 and verse 1, what does it say? It said, "He that contemneth small things shall fall little by little." You don't want to be like that. You don't want to you just overlooking the commandments. Right? You undermining certain things. You understand it in ways of how the commandments guide you. You understand the things that we're supposed to live by. You looking at it like it's, man, I don't gotta get that straightened out, or I don't gotta do this, or you don't ever want to have that mindset, because if you do have that mindset, it's going to turn into a snowball effect. That's all it's going to have. It's just going to turn into a snowball effect. You're starting off little things and it's going to continue, and it's going to become a big problem and a big issue. Now you're trying to figure out why you know, your flame damn near gone, or why you don't want to do certain things anymore. But it's because you was overlooking the little things. You see what I'm saying? And some people may look at, you know, loving your brother as a little thing, right? And we all know, like, when you come into this truth, you know, we understand that you got to love your people. But it's one thing to say it and know it, and it's another thing to actually perform it and do it. You see what I'm saying? So we all understand that you got to love your people, love your brothers. You understand? And when I say love your people, love your brothers, perform the commandments towards them. You see what I'm saying? Hey, the Lord said, real quick, let me get this in the book of Proverbs real quick. This is the book of Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 24. It says, "A man that have friends must shew himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother." So the Lord said, hey, a man that have friends, he got to show himself friendly. You don't want to walk around and you being an a-hole to everybody. You being an a-hole to everybody. You don't, like I said, you're not treating people with respect. You feel me? Somebody gave you, lend you some money, you never paid it back. You didn't even attempt to. Whatever the case, you backbiting, you slandering people's names, so on and so forth. Like, you don't want to move in that spirit. All right, that's an uncomely spirit, you know, to be in or to move in. So ultimately, right, and let's get another, or let's read this one more time, right? It's the book of Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 3. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them upon thy neck and write them upon the table of thine heart, right? Real quick, let's just get real quick precept proving what that truth is again, right? It's the book of Psalms chapter 119 and verse 142. It says, thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness. Thy law is the truth. So the law is the truth. You understand? These commandments is truth. And you don't want those things, like I said, to seep out slowly. Because if you letting it seep out slowly, guess what? Surely it's gonna leave you, and it's gonna turn into something bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, even a tire that got a little crease or a cut in it, yeah, it may be, you know, leaking out air slowly, but eventually it's gonna get to the point to where there's no more air in the tire. You see what I'm saying? If you don't do what? If you don't get it fixed. Right? That's why you have to follow hard after the Lord. That's why you have to, let me get that, since we already here in Psalms 119, let's go to Psalms 119 and verse 10. Right? It says, with my whole heart have I sought thee. Oh, let me not wander from thy commandments. So it said, with my whole heart have I sought thee. And it said what? It said, oh, let me not wander from thy commandments. So you don't want to wander away from the words of the Lord, the commandments. You don't want them to slowly seep out from you. You don't want to forget them. You don't want to undermine them and say, oh, that's a little, I'll get to that when I get to that. Or that's a little, you know, I'll exercise that when I... No, you want to care for these things. You want to seek the Most High God, his laws, statutes, and commandments, and how to please him and be favorable in his sight with all your heart. You got to follow hard after the Lord, right? Let's get that. Like David did, man. It's the book of Psalms, chapter 63 and verse 8. It says, my soul followeth hard after thee. Thy right hand upholdeth me. Right? So you want to follow hard after the Lord. You understand? You want to seek the Lord with your whole heart, meaning your whole mind. All right, let's go back to that in Proverbs chapter 3. Let's read a little bit more on that. A little bit more on that chapter, right? So reading Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 3 again, it says, let not mercy and truth forsake thee, talking about the commandments, just like in verse 1, right? It says, bind them upon thy neck, write them upon the table of thine heart. It says, so shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. So it said, if you do these things, that what? Hey, you'll find favor in the sight of God and man. Excuse me. And that, like I said, that's what we talking about right now. Excuse me. Right? That's what we talking about right now. And that's what we want to do. We want to have favor in the sight of God and man. Let's go to the book of, let's go back to, let's go to Proverbs chapter 8. And verse, I'll start at 32. Yeah, I'll start at 32. All right. It's the book of Proverbs chapter 8 and verse 32. It says, now therefore hearken unto me, O ye children, for blessed are they that keep my ways. Hear my instruction and be wise and refuse it not. Right? Who is this in the form of, you understand, speaking? What is it speaking about? It's speaking about wisdom. You want to listen and attain unto wisdom, right? You want to see what wisdom gives you, right? What wisdom said, you want to follow after wisdom. Same way how you want to follow after the Most High God, right? Because wisdom comes from the Most High God. We talking about true wisdom, not the wisdom of the world. You understand? But true wisdom, which comes from the Most High God. That's what you want to follow after as well. It says, verse 33, hear my instruction and be wise and refuse it not. Blessed is the man that heareth me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the post of my doors. Watch this. It says, for whoso findeth me, what's the me? Wisdom. For whoso findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord. You see that? So how do you obtain favor of the Lord? By following after wisdom. You understand? And ultimately, wisdom comes from what? Keeping the commandments. Even in the book of Sirach, chapter 1 and verse 26. Sirach 1 and 26 says, right, paraphrasing greatly, but if you, right, want wisdom, you understand you got to keep the commandments, and the Lord will give it to you. Right, paraphrasing greatly. Right, Salakia. Right, but paraphrasing greatly, hey, if you want wisdom, guess what? Keep the commandments, and the Lord will give you unto her, or give her unto you. So reading that one more time in verse 35, it says, for whoso findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord. And that's what you want to do. You want to find favor, you understand, in the eyes of the Lord. And that's by doing what? Following after the commandments. When you following after the commandments, guess what? You obtaining and gaining wisdom. Right? When you obtaining and gaining wisdom, right, guess what you're going to keep doing? You're going to keep following after the law, statutes, and commandments. When you following after the law, statutes, and commandments, and you're putting forth wisdom, what else are you doing? You, guess what? You're finding favor in the sight of man. Why? Because you're keeping these commandments. Meaning what? You're going to love your people. You're going to treat your people how they're supposed to be treated. You're not going to backbite against them. You're not going to hate them in your heart. You're not going to speak ill of them unintentionally, so on and so forth. Right? Or at all. Not even unintentional, but period. All right? So these different things we want to, you know, follow after and mirror to the best of our ability. Because at the end of the day, or real quick, before I say that, right, let's go to Luke real quick, chapter 2. Because even Christ, you know, Christ did that. He increased, all right, with the Most High God, but also with man. This the book of Luke, chapter 2 and verse 52. It says, and Yahushua increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. You see that? So when he increased in wisdom, you understand, obviously he was keeping the commandments. What did he increase also? Guess what? He increased with the Most High, in favor with the Most High God and also man. Who else did that? Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 2 and 26. All right, this is the book of 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 26. It says, and the child Samuel grew on and was in favor both with the Lord and also with men. So and when you read about Samuel, Samuel grew up in the temple. He grew up around the priest and grew up in the temple. You understand? Let me that real quick. Right, even here in verse 18 it says, but Samuel ministered before the Lord, being a child, girded with the linen ephod. Right, so he was ministering before the Lord as a child. He grew up in the temple. You understand? Real quick, bear with me. I read verse chapter 1, right, in verse 28. It says, therefore also I have lent him. Right, this is his mother speaking, right? But it says, therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord, and he worshiped the Lord there. So what's the point of me bringing this out? Guess what? He grew up in wisdom. Grew up keeping the commandments. He grew up in the temple of the Lord, following after the righteous priests, so on and so forth, ministering before the Lord from a child growing up. So and by doing that, what did he do? Guess what? He increased in favor with the Most High God and with men. And because he put forth wisdom and the commandments, what was he able to stand on? All right, let's go to chapter 12, and I'll get right to the point. All right, this is the book of 1 Samuel chapter 12 and verse 3. This is the book of 1 Samuel chapter 12 and verse 3. It says, behold, here I am, witness against me before the Lord and before his anointed, whose ox have I taken? right? That's a question. He asking the question. So he's standing before the people. And he's basically naming things and saying, who can you speak any ill toward me or about me? And that's a beautiful and a mighty thing to be able to address or say or move or question. Like, Samuel was so much in the spirit and so much putting forth wisdom and executing the commandments to the best of his ability. He was able to straight up and down name off things and say, can you speak any ill against me? And the people was forced to say, la'ah. And you got to think about yourself and say to yourself, are you able to do something like that? You don't literally got to do that. As far as literally you go out into congregation, you say, can y'all speak any? No. But you know if you have or not, man. And that's something that you need to examine for yourself. And if you can't say that, then align yourself more with the scriptures and the precepts and move accordingly. You understand? And if you can say that, as far as, hey, I've done nobody no ill, then guess what? Continue to mirror yourself after these laws, statutes, and commandments and these precepts. Move in the spirit of wisdom. You understand? And continue to grow and get better day by day. And continue to grow in favor with man. Because it said they grew in favor. Right? Or Slakia. Or did it just say oh, it said they grew on, Slakia. It said they grew on and was in favor of both. Right? But you want to be able to grow in favor, you understand, with man, but also grow in favor with the Most High God. You want to continue to grow. You don't want to stay stagnant and just, oh, that's just what. No, you want to continue to grow. You understand? You want to continue to grow, right? But reading on and finishing this, right? In 1 Samuel chapter 12, verse 3, it says, behold, here I am, witness against me before the Lord and before his anointed. Whose ox have I taken? Or whose ass have I taken? Or whom have I defrauded? Whom have I oppressed? Or of whose hand have I received any bribe to blind mine eyes therewith? And I will restore it you. It says, and they said, thou hast not defrauded us, nor oppressed us, neither hast thou taken aught of any man's hand. So he raised up these questions and said, man, who have I done wrong? Where at have you seen me do wrong? And they said, hey, we haven't, man. That's a mighty and a beautiful thing for somebody to be able to say about you. And most importantly, as much as we possibly can, because obviously we're not faultless when it comes to the Most High God, but we want to move, you understand, as close as we can in that spirit of being faultless with the Most High. You understand, by doing what? Aligning yourself with these laws, statutes, and commandments, the precepts, moving in the spirit of wisdom, and repenting. Right? But, like I said, it comes down to what? Let's go back to that in Proverbs. Chapter 3. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, and I'll start at verse 1. It says, my son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. For length of days and long life and peace shall they add unto thee. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them upon thy neck, write them upon the table of thine heart. So shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. And that's what we want to do. We want to have good understanding. We want to have favor in the sight of man, but also in the sight of the Most High God, most importantly. And like I said at the beginning, that doesn't mean that somebody's never going to say something bad about you, right? Or speak ill of you. They could be lying or whatever the case may be. But like I said, if somebody's speaking bad about you, you want it to be because of something you're doing right. And they just might not like it. But if you're doing something right and somebody's speaking bad about you, hey, it is what it is. Charge it to the game. You see what I'm saying? But if people are speaking bad about you and it's because of what you're doing wrong, align yourself with these precepts, right? Get back on track, align yourself with the precepts, right? And hey, do what ye ought to do. which is keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, follow after wisdom, repent, continue on in the faith. All right. Let me get this precept real quick. Bear with me. Right, this is the book of Matthew chapter 5 and verse 11. It says, blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. You see, that's like I said, if they speaking ill against you or towards you, whatever the case may be, and it's false, and ultimately it's because you doing what's right in the eyes of the Most High God, and you doing what's right according to these laws and commandments that the Most High God has given us, it is what it is. So be it. You see what I'm saying? All praise to the Most High. But don't let it be because it's something that you're actually doing wrong. Not keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments, not moving in the spirit of wisdom, not, hey, as a friend, showing yourself friendly. You see what I'm saying? And being one, that's a friend that's sticking closer than a brother. You understand? Not being somebody that's a backbiter, or you making up lies, or you just an a-hole, or so on and so forth. All right. So ultimately, right, this is a short cold cut through the spirit, or a cold cut through the spirit, right? Just being able to do what? Showing how to be in favor with man, most importantly, be in favor with the Most High God. With that, Kwame Yashala, Shalom.